Hello, all you fine feathered individuals. This is League Unlock. My name's Eric, and the countdowns are rolling onwards. We now stumble into the jungle to go 10-1, the best junglers, ranking them at the World Championship. And I feel like this one, the top two are pretty consensus. Maybe you can argue who is one and who is two, but it's between two players. And if you have anyone else there, I'm sorry. You are absolutely certifiably insane because it's Kanavi and Canyon. We have Kanavi coming in at number one, Canyon number two, but these were clearly the two best junglers throughout, at the very least, the summer split. And when you're talking about Kanavi, you're talking about all of 2020. He picked up that MVP in the spring split. These guys ain't on no tank duty. They're playing the carry junglers, which are pretty damn good in this meta. The Nidalees, the Kindreds. You feel like Kanavi is associated with Kindred, and Canyon is associated with Nidalee. They just seem to be their strongest picks, but that top side of the map has been the strong suit of JDG for all of 2020, and Kanavi is one of the main reasons why. Absolutely lethal in the jungle, whether it's just great that we're now in a meta where you can talk about, yes, the early game, the full control that the jungle has pre-15 minutes to take over the game. But now, because they're on all these scaling picks, you can also highlight the team fight mechanics and the carry potential that they have in the late game when you're on these picks. Kindred, Graves even, and the Nidalee that I mentioned on Canyon. And Kanavi has showcased it time and time again. And when you're talking about Canyon, how many times did we see in the LCK he was 3, sometimes even 4 levels higher than his opposite side in the jungle, which is just absolutely disgusting. Yeah, they changed the experience catch up, and he absolutely took advantage of that, of junglers just not being able to bounce back. But they're one of the main reasons why Damwon's game time was so short is because Canyon's advantage in the jungle would just snowball out of control by, we're not even talking 15 minutes, maybe around 12 minutes. He's already a couple levels ahead. A huge bounty on his head because he's 3-0 and a 4,000 gold lead for Damwon. The main reason for the snowball that Damwon would put forward is Canyon. So Kanavi, Canyon, you're insane to not have them in top two. In whatever order, we went with Kanavi. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you could put into it. You could include the full longevity because his dates back to spring. Canyon only really came online with the rest of his team in the summer split. And both of them having a domestic title this year. So they're number 1 and 2. You're insane any other way. Number 3 as we roll on, S of M, followed immediately by Peanut. I've seen some people jump back and forth between who they put ahead in this matchup of a couple LPL junglers. S of M's obviously a little bit more of a different play style than what we get out of Kanavi and Canyon. You know, he's on the Jarvan a lot more. He's on the Lee Sin. Everybody loves to talk about the Knight's Vow that he likes to build on many different junglers, but he's much more supportive. I'm here to engage, get the fight started. You guys clean up this fight, and it worked pretty damn well for Suning. Obviously, this guy's Lee Sin is otherworldly, as is just a requirement to, I believe, even pick Smite in the LPL. Every LPL jungler has an insane Lee Sin highlight reel, I'm sure. But SFM is the one member of Suning that I feel like gets the recognition that he deserves. And if you talk about Suning, everyone immediately says, oh, SFM's team. Yeah, he's great. Finally, excited to see him at Worlds. Yes, we are. And he is fantastic. Glad he's getting that recognition. He's number 3. Peanut's return to Worlds. All these jungle champions that I've talked about. They sound familiar to a certain era in 2016. What was Peanut doing in 2016? Oh, that's right. He was the best jungler in the world on the Rocks Tigers. He was playing Kindred. He was playing Nidalee, and they're back in the forefront. And a lot of the time that Peanut struggled on Gen G, even on Kingzone at the end of his tenure with them, it was a tank meta. He wasn't able to play these carries. Well, now he's fully unleashed. He's got that LPL play style. Excited to see them completely smurf through the play-ins with LGD. And Peanut, get yourself to that main stage because we want to see you back at the World Championship. Number 5 below him is Karsa, and Karsa is living a life of paradise on top esports. You look to the top side, you got 369 solo split pushing stomping lane. You got Knight, maybe the best player in the world right now, doing pretty damn well in the laning phase. And then you got Jackie Love. It's a paradise for him because every lane is usually doing well, which, as you can imagine, makes your job a whole lot easier as a jungler. But let's not take away what Karsa has done still this split, because he is, when you have such resource-hungry solo laners and an AD carry, a lot of the time it's Karsa who gets left in the dust, who's losing farm, who's losing experience. He's doing everything in his power to stay relevant in the game, while also stacking up his teammates and making sure to help them out in the laning phase or even beyond. So with the little resources that he does get, what he's been able to do, Karsa has had a fantastic split for top esports, and he deserves a top 5 nod for what he's done. This is peak Flash Wolves form that we're getting out of Karsa. Number 6, people might say, a little bit too high. How can you have Selfmade so high at number 6, ahead of Clid, ahead of Jankos? But Selfmade was the best performing member of Fnatic for probably the entire summer split. And the series against G2, I'm talking about the first one where Fnatic won, not the finals, one of the best individual performances in a best of 5 from a jungler that I've ever seen in Europe. And it was opposite Jankos, who has been the king of the jungle for 2 years at the very least in Europe. Selfmade absolutely unleashed on these carry champions. Another guy who, as the meta transitioned away from tanks, you really saw him start to pop off more. And he's the opposite of Karsa, because he looks to his lanes, and a lot of the time, at least 2 out of the 3 were losing. So he's had a lot less to work with and still been able to put up some of the performances that he did do. And if he keeps playing at this level, then Fnatic has a pretty decent shot of getting out of that group, as long as, some other lanes can potentially step up and be a little bit more consistent. Selfmade is ahead of Clid, which seems insane. And here's the thing. T1 were so incredibly reliant on Clid when he was on the roster that if he wasn't playing at a world-class form, they didn't look as good, which is why Clid deservedly got so much praise. You were talking about him. He was way more important than Faker on the iteration of that roster. Now he comes to Gen G, and he's clearly taken a step back, whether it's to do with the meta, the playstyle, or just how the team operates. But it's very much about Ruler and BDD. It's absolutely their squad, and Clid has kind of taken a step back, hasn't necessarily done as much. We haven't seen him on the carry picks as much as some of the other junglers, even within the context of the LCK. So it's not to say Clid is underperforming, but he's not as big of a focal point on his squad, and that's why he's down at number 7 as opposed to, the top 3 to 4 where we're accustomed to seeing him. Jankos is another guy who we're accustomed to seeing towards the top. He did not have the split that we're used out of him. I mean, he had back-to-back MVPs, and some of that is, of course, associated with the slump that G2 had as a team, but some of it also you can pin individually on some of the mistakes or just lower caliber of play that we got out of Jankos. He should be thriving in some of these more carry roles and picks, but I feel like he's more comfortable with the tanks. As much as the Sejuani memes have been talked about to death, he seems more comfortable when he's playing something that can get fights started, whether it's a Jarvan, whether it's the Skarner, or that oh-so-coveted Sejuani. I haven't seen him as comfortable in the carry meta unless it's something like a Karthus, which we have seen him dominate on. But for now, Jankos is number 8. He could change our minds when the group stage does roll around. Number 9 is a fellow EU brethren in Shadow, the most important member for Mad Lions in getting things, just dominating team fights. He's dominated Jankos in some of the head-to-head matchups. Obviously, Mad did end up falling to G2, but the games that Mad were winning against the top-tier competition in Europe were usually on the back of Shadow, combined with Kaiser, perhaps. But Shadow has had some fantastic play. Number 10 on the list was the trickiest one, and I think it's a 2-horse race. We went with Piosik, who gets criticized a lot, but he still showed up for DRX, and the mechanical prowess ceiling that we love to talk about with seemingly mostly LCK players is still there. He's a rookie. I feel bad putting him over somebody like Inspired, who really stepped up in the playoffs for Rogue, and I want to include them both on this list. They're so incredibly close. If you have Inspired in the top 10, hey, I got no issues with that over Pyosik. We just lean towards him because he did have some very good early game action throughout the majority of Dragon X. And like Canyon, some of the snowballing did happen through Pyosik for Dragon X. But if you have Inspired on your list, I will forgive you just this once.